Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm thermal weather forecast. In this forecast, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it here. First, taking a look at what to expect across the eastern United States for the rest of the evening, disregarding the west because there's not really much happening. Going in towards this evening, you can see here we're likely going to have a strong storm system with a potent cold front extending from north to south. We will likely have northwest to southeast moving thunderstorms, which could be severe with damaging winds, tornadoes, and potentially hail, more likely in those isolated cells. But as that storm system begins to move out, cold air will begin to move into the United States. We'll likely see some lake effect snow across portions of the Great Lakes region, and then down here maybe a lingering severe threat going in towards your early Monday morning. Beyond this storm system, it continues to stay pretty interesting across the United States. We're likely going to enter a break as we headed towards this upcoming week, with Tuesday being perhaps the coldest day the U.S. has had in a while, especially across the eastern half of the United States. Western half of the United States is full-blown warmth, and that as we take this into the daytime hours on our Wednesday, March 26th, we are still pretty quiet across the country, all an exception for a couple snow showers and rain showers off of this Clipper system. And look at this big-time ridge building out towards the west, guys. That is eventually going to start being a part of the next weather pattern, which is going to arrive to the eastern and central United States as we head into the day on Thursday. But look out west, big-time trough starts to dig in, and a big-time ridge extends all the way into Canada. When you go to the eastern United States, trough extends as far south as the Carolinas, my friends. Thursday could be the coldest day in a long time for areas of the northeastern United States. Not like bitter cold temperatures like what you'd see in January, but it's definitely going to feel like winter in some areas, especially the further north and east you go. Taking this into Friday the 28th, look at this. Trough continues to dig into portions of the Rocky Mountains. Warm air starts to infiltrate into the eastern half of the United States, basically a warm bubble at this point. But look at this moisture down here into Texas. I could see maybe a brief severe threat, possibly extending with damaging winds, tornadoes, and hail. And then as we head into the day on Saturday, we get a full-blown storm system, and then we get a trough to dig in. Like I mentioned before, it's going to do something like that, and it's going to remain rather warm for areas in the southern and central United States. I don't know why I said southern and central United States. And you can see here extending south of this 998 millibar low could have the potential for maybe some strong to severe thunderstorms, maybe even up here as well into Missouri, back into portions of Kansas. We could also see some stronger storms, so definitely something to keep an eye on there. But I'm most concerned for the day on Sunday, because Sunday looks kind of rather concerning for a lot of the eastern United States. All right, look at this. Big time cold front, and look at these thunderstorms all the way from Ohio back down into the Gulf of Mexico. All right, that is going to be something to really keep an eye on. And even on the northern end, too, we could be dealing with a winter storm. And as I rewind this, I mean, you can see winter storm conditions possible. We could have an ice storm across portions of Wisconsin. And look at that snow breaking out as we head into the daytime hours on Sunday into Monday. I mean, look at this. This pattern is just relentless across the United States here. We're likely going to have a brief trough around on that 31st time frame. And then as we head into April, all signs point towards a warmer and active weather pattern across the United States, with perhaps severe weather getting as far north as Michigan by the time the month comes. But now let's take a quick look at what our jet stream could look like over the course of the next week or so, because it looks pretty interesting, especially as we head in towards late week. But starting this here off as we head into the daytime hours tomorrow, again, trough digging into the eastern United States, big time ridge building out towards the west. And then as we take this into the day on Tuesday, March 25th, that jet stream will probably stay maintained with a little slider system. Again, like I said, not out of the question in the Ohio Valley riding that. And then as we head into the day on Wednesday, this could possibly be the coldest day of the week for the eastern United States, with the jet stream being as far south as North Carolina. And then as we head into the day on Thursday, we should finally begin to see that cold air starting to be pushed out by a ridge. And then as we head ultimately into the day on Friday, this is when things start to get really interesting, as we'll likely have a trough trying to dig into the southwestern United States and a big time ridge building ahead of that in the central, eastern, and southern United States. And then by the time we hit Saturday, this ridge is just dominant over the eastern United States, guys. And look at where the wind barbs are coming out of. The Gulf, all right? So we're talking about moisture already being extended northward ahead of this trough. That is going to be a big concern for these areas to have severe weather, as I mentioned before, on that precipitation forecast. And even as we head into the day on Sunday as well, this trough is going to continue moving off towards the east. Like I said before, I could definitely see a little bit of a significant weather threat, a severe weather threat across portions of the Ohio Valley, back down into portions of the Gulf Coast region. And then as we head Sunday night into Monday the 31st, the last day of March, things become very uncertain, but a ridge looks to build right back in on the backside of that with a lot of Pacific moisture filtering in. So that should help to keep things warm through April here. And the interesting thing I just wanted to briefly take a look at is look how far north the jet stream lifts by April. All right, I mean, it is still in the United States, but man alive, look how strong this is. This could allow for a heat wave across portions of the southern and eastern United States. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on top of the thunderstorm threats we have over the course of the next couple weeks into April. With all that being said, let's take a look at our temperature trends across the country over the course of the next couple weeks here. You can see as we head into the daytime hours tomorrow, pretty evident, like I said before, that we'll likely have below average temperatures, at least slightly across portions of the eastern United States. And then as we head into the day on Tuesday, notice the big time ridge building out towards the west and the big time trough in the east. All right, that's the pattern we're likely going to be in for the next few days, as I mentioned before. And I mean, look at that. Wednesday, we could be pushing our coldest day of the week across the eastern United States, especially in these darker areas where we could have the potential of up to 20 to even up to 30 degree below average temperatures. And then as we head into the day on Thursday, the warm air starts to move back to the central United States. We'll likely see this area expanding eastward with time. As I said, it will expand eastward with time. And then on Friday, look at this. We could be as much as 20 to 30 degrees above average temperatures across portions of the central and northern United States. Meanwhile, we have this at least slightly above average temperature bubble for a lot of the central and eastern part of the country. And look at this. As we head into the day on Saturday, it is just very warm across portions of the eastern United States. It's going to feel very nice. And then as we head into the day on Sunday, cold front comes to ruin it. Like I said before, we're likely going to have cooler air on the backside and still this big area of heat. Like I said, that's going to allow for thunderstorms up and down that area. And then as we head into the day on Monday, we will likely see that cold air moving in. And it doesn't last long, guys. The warm air moves right back in. And all signs might be pointing towards a potential heat wave for much of the country, especially the central and eastern two-thirds of the country, as we head in towards the first week or so of April. All right, now let's take a look at your actual temperatures from now until into early April. As we take this in towards that Monday into Tuesday time frame, again, like I said before, that trough will be sitting over the eastern United States, and then this ridge is going to be building in the western United States. Temperatures could be pushing 90 in some areas in Texas for the daytime hours on Tuesday, so make sure you hydrate down there. And then as we head into the day on Wednesday, as mentioned before, coldest day of the week for the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, back into portions of the Northeast. Meanwhile, out west, possibly the warmest day of the week, with temperatures getting near 60 and flirting with 60 even into portions of Canada. So that's definitely pretty warm. And then down here, some areas still flirting with 80 to perhaps up to 90-degree temperatures across the deep south regions, specifically talking the Lone Star State and the Southwest. And then as we head into the day on Thursday, those high temperatures will get even higher as we head in towards that time frame. As that ridge begins to expand a lot further east, we could be flirting with 90 degrees across portions of southern Florida. Trough continues to sit across portions of the Northeast, and then as we head into the day on Friday, that trough will begin to get pushed back by this ridge. We will likely begin to see the mild temperatures getting a lot further north and a lot further east, with temperatures in the 60s in Pennsylvania, back into portions of New York where we could see temperatures in the 40s and 50s, which is warm for them for this time of year. And in the central plains, back into the southern plains, perhaps somewhere flirting, some areas flirting with 80 degrees. And then as we head into the day on Saturday, you can see here this warm lobe of air a lot further north and east. We could be seeing several locations in the circle region flirting with 70 or even 80 degrees, especially the further south you go. And then as we head into the day on Sunday, still some areas flirting with 80 degrees up and down the Ohio Valley, back into portions of the southeastern United States. Pennsylvania could be flirting with 80 degrees on Saturday, guys. That is just crazy warm for this time of year, or I apologize, Sunday. And look at this, 60s out towards the west, 60s into portions of central Michigan, guys. That's definitely going to be very much felt. And then as we head in towards the last day of March and into early April, little cold shot, and then the warm air is back at it as we headed towards April. And yeah, we might get a little bit of a heat wave, as I mentioned before, for some portions of the United States. And let's take a look at your total precipitation, meaning rain, snow, sleet, ice. It doesn't matter what type of precipitation it is. It just matters there is some accumulation showing up here. As we head into the daytime hours on Tuesday, notice that is from likely snowfall up here across portions of Wisconsin, back into portions of the northern Great Lakes. And down here in the south, those are probably off of the thunderstorms that we're going to get this evening across those areas. But then as we head in towards late week, notice the atmospheric river starting to put down a lot of rain, snow, and all of that across portions of the west. And into the day on Friday the 28th, look at this, still some more precipitation. But I did mention before that Texas was going to start getting in on that. And then as we head into the day on Saturday, look at that severe threat perking up across portions of the Arklatex region back into Missouri. And look at what happens as we head into the day on Sunday. That severe thunderstorm threat and heavy rain threat will move eastward. This could be a major winter storm for areas of Wisconsin into Michigan, or perhaps ice storms. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. As we head the last day of March into the early day of the first day of April, we're likely going to see this precipitation continuing to move eastward. And look at this, another atmospheric river for the west. Look how that precipitation just continues to compile as we head Wednesday, Thursday, April 3rd. Look at this, guys. Several inches of precipitation have fallen by this time frame, all right? So to finalize it, a lot of areas likely to experience heavy precipitation, most likely snow the areas further north, rain for areas further south, and thunderstorms for areas further south. Back into portions of the west, heavy mountain snow and rain on the lower elevations, and we're likely also going to see some mountain terrain snow in the western high plains as well. So a lot of areas to pinpoint. Definitely not going to be short of any precipitation whatsoever as we head from now into early April. But let's take a look at our snowfall accumulations as you can see from now into that April time frame. March 24th into the 25th, we could already be dealing with some decent snowfall across the Great Lakes region back into the Northeast, as well as into the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. And look at this, from Tuesday all the way to the Tuesday after that, look how much snow falls across portions of the northern Great Lakes region, guys. I mean, I don't know if we get up to this much, but we could be talking about some foot of snow in some areas, possibly into Ontario, as well as this potential 60 to 100 inches of snow in the mountains of California back into portions of the Pacific Northwest. And lastly, let's take a look at what Climate Prediction Center thinks here. You can see for the next 8 to 14 days, above average temperatures all the way into portions of the plain states back into the Northeast, as we'd expect, with a hot spot specifically in the central and southern plains, which I definitely am not surprised about. And then over here for your 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, below average precipitation will take place with a high pressure ridge that's going to develop down in the south central United States, and those atmospheric rivers just relentless across the Pacific Northwest. And then over here into the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley Northeast, that could be in the form of snowstorms across portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, back into portions of the Northeast, and the Ohio Valley potentially being in the form of thunderstorms. And taking a look here now lastly at your 8 to 14 day U.S. hazardous weather outlook, your risk of high winds over the course of the 8 to 14 day period, pretty decent across portions of the Northeast back into portions of the southern United States. Another hot spot being portions of the western United States with those windy atmospheric rivers here. And taking a look at your risk of heavy snowfall, we mentioned a lot of heavy snow possible from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, back into portions of the Northeast, and over here back into portions of the mountains of the high plains, back into portions especially of the California, back into portions of Oregon, Washington mountains, where we could see potentially up to 100 inches of snow. Definitely something you want to keep an eye on if you live there. But taking a look here lastly at your risk of heavy precipitation. Slight risk of heavy precipitation extends from Louisiana to Florida along the line to Kentucky, back into portions of Virginia. And that could be extended further north and perhaps further west in future updates. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. So that will conclude this video. I'm Severe Storm Filmer as always. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and comment any questions you may have. I will answer them as soon as possible. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll have another update for you probably next week. Stay safe out there.